What if I told you that the only thing separating you from mastering any subject, physics, programming, a new language, complex business strategy, is not your intelligence, but simply the way you learn? Most people treat learning like filling a bucket. They believe success means cramming more facts, memorizing more formulas, and spending more hours staring at textbooks. But the greatest minds in history knew something radically different. They understood that mastery doesn't come from accumulation. It comes from transformation. Consider Richard Feynman, a physicist who unraveled some of the deepest mysteries of the universe. He wasn't celebrated because he made quantum mechanics more complicated. He was revered because he made it simple. He could explain the behavior of subatomic particles as if he were telling a bedtime story to a curious child. That wasn't just a gift. It was a deliberate technique. And here's the life-changing truth. You can use this exact method to learn absolutely anything. The secret isn't endless hours of blind effort. The secret is forcing your mind to reorganize information in a way that makes forgetting impossible. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a 5-step formula that will fundamentally change how you absorb knowledge. By the end, you'll realize your brain is not a static storage box, but a living, adaptive machine designed to simplify, connect, and create meaning. And once you learn how to unlock it, mastering anything isn't just possible, it becomes inevitable. So stay with me, because what you're about to learn may transform not only how you study, but how you see your own potential. Let's say you're facing a difficult subject. Maybe it's calculus, economics, coding, or a foreign language. It feels overwhelming, like climbing a mountain in the fog. Most people's first instinct is to dive into memorization mode. Flashcards, highlighted textbooks, frantic note-taking. But here's the first radical shift. Don't start with memorization. Start with simplification. Choose one single concept. Just one. It could be Newton's second law, how interest rates affect inflation, or how a loop works in Python. Now, take a blank sheet of paper and write down your understanding of that concept, as if you were explaining it to a 7-year-old child. Use simple words, short sentences, everyday examples. Strip away the jargon. No technical terms unless you can define them in plain language. When you force yourself to do this, something powerful happens. Your mind can no longer hide behind complexity. You can't lean on fancy vocabulary to mask gaps in understanding. The illusion dissolves, and you see your knowledge, or lack of it, with brutal clarity. Let me give you a concrete example. Imagine you're learning about fractions. The textbook says, a fraction represents a part of a whole, expressed as a ratio of 2 integers, the numerator and the denominator. Technically accurate, completely forgettable. Now, try this. Imagine you have a pizza. If you cut it into 4 equal slices and take one, you have 1/4 of the pizza. Instantly, the abstract becomes tangible. You haven't just memorized a definition, you've built a mental image. This is the core of step 1. Always begin by simplifying. When you translate the complex into the simple, your brain constructs deeper, more durable connections. Information stops being distant and theoretical. It becomes part of your natural vocabulary, woven into the fabric of how you think. Now that you've simplified the concept, it's time for the step that separates passive readers from true learners: teaching. And here's the critical insight. You don't need a classroom, students, or a whiteboard. Teaching simply means explaining the concept out loud, as if you were talking to someone who knows nothing about it. It could be a friend, a family member, your phone's camera, a mirror, or even an empty chair. The medium doesn't matter. What matters is turning silent thought into spoken words. Why is this so powerful? Because when you try to teach, your brain is forced to organize ideas in a logical, sequential structure. Suddenly, what seemed perfectly clear in your head starts to crumble. You hesitate. You forget a crucial detail. You can't find the right words. Your explanation stumbles and falls apart. And that moment, that uncomfortable, frustrating moment is not failure. That is the precise point where learning happens. It's the moment when the illusion of understanding dissolves and your mind reveals its gaps. You thought you knew it, but now you see the holes. And only when you can see the holes can you fill them. Think about how young children learn. They tell stories fearlessly, inventing words, repeating themselves, stumbling over details. They aren't afraid of making mistakes because their goal isn't perfection, it's understanding. And because of that fearless engagement, they learn at an astonishing speed. When you put yourself in that same position, teaching something you don't yet fully master, you activate the brain's most powerful natural learning mechanism. So here's step 2. Teach in order to learn. The more you attempt to explain, the more you understand. Knowledge doesn't solidify through silent reading. It solidifies through the effort of articulation. Speaking forces your brain to organize, clarify, and lock in the information. Remember, you're not teaching to impress anyone. You're teaching to discover, to uncover what you truly know and what you still need to learn. You've simplified. You've tried to teach. And in the process, you discovered gaps, parts of the explanation that didn't make sense, details you couldn't recall, connections you couldn't articulate. Now comes step 3. Return to the material, review it, and simplify again. This iterative cycle is what transforms fragile information into rock-solid knowledge. Let's use a practical example. Suppose you're learning about gravity. At first, you write down the textbook definition. Gravity is a force of attraction between two masses, proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. It sounds impressive. It sounds scientific. But do you truly understand it? Now try explaining it to a child. Gravity is like an invisible rope that pulls things toward each other. The bigger something is, the stronger its pull. That's why the Earth keeps the moon spinning around it, and why when you jump, you always come back down. Suddenly, instead of a complicated formula, you have a vivid mental image. That's the power of review and refinement. You take what you couldn't explain well, go back to the source, find better examples, swap technical language for simple imagery, and try again. It's like a sculptor chiseling away at a block of marble. Each pass removes what's unnecessary until only the essential form remains. And here's the key. Every time you review and simplify, your brain reorganizes itself. What was once fragile becomes solid. What was once a memorized sentence becomes genuine understanding. You no longer rely on rote repetition because now you get it. This is step 3. Review until you can explain it simply. Only when you can express an idea in clear conversational language have you truly mastered it. If you've simplified, taught, and reviewed, you're already far ahead of most learners. But there's a 4th level that elevates understanding even further: creative repetition. This isn't mindless drilling. It's presenting the same core idea from multiple angles, as if you're playing with the knowledge. The brain thrives on variety. When you encounter the same concept in different contexts, you build multiple neural pathways. It's like reinforcing a bridge with many support beams. The more angles, the stronger the structure. Here's how to apply it. Example 1. Learning about electricity. After simplifying and reviewing, explain it 3 different ways. First, using wires and light bulbs. Then by comparing it to water flowing through pipes. Finally, by drawing a simple diagram on paper. Each version locks in a different dimension of the concept. Example 2. Studying history. Don't just memorize dates. Turn the event into a story. A starving population rose up against a corrupt king who lived in luxury while they suffered. That's the French Revolution. Then tell it as a stage play. Then write it as a breaking news headline. Example 3. Learning a language. Take one sentence and use it in different scenarios. Ordering food, asking for directions, having a conversation. with a friend. See the pattern? The content stays the same, but the form changes. And that variation forces your brain to create flexible, adaptable understanding. Here's the hidden benefit. When you play with learning, the brain treats it as pleasure, not obligation. Pleasure activates memory systems far more powerfully than stress or fear. That's why children learn so rapidly through play. They're not just accumulating facts, they're enjoying the process. So step 4 is this. Don't be a mechanical repeater. Be a creator of versions. Each new way of explaining adds another layer of permanence. Now here's the moment when many people give up. You simplify, you try to teach. You review. You experiment with creative repetition, and yet, you still stumble. The words don't come. The logic slips. The explanation fails. Most people take this as proof they're not smart enough. But the truth is exactly the opposite. Mistakes are not obstacles. They are the compass pointing you toward real learning. When you make an error, it doesn't mean you know nothing. It means you found the exact point where your mental bridge is weak. And that's precisely where you need to focus your effort. Think of it this way. Imagine your learning probability. You try to explain why the chance of flipping heads or tails is 50-50. You say, because there are 2 options, and one of them has to happen. It sounds logical, but it's incomplete. It sounds logical, but it's incomplete. When you stumble, you realize you don't fully understand independent events. The mistake exposed the gap. Now, when you go back and review, you come back stronger. A coin has no memory. Each flip is independent, which is why the chance is always 50-50 no matter what happened before. Another example, you try to explain photosynthesis and forget to mention sunlight. The discomfort of that mistake forces you to review. The next time, you never forget again because the failure carved a permanent mark in your memory. Here's the key insight. Every mistake is a rehearsal. The more you stumble while explaining, the more raw material you have to refine into clarity. It's like a sculptor who, with each wrong strike of the chisel, discovers the true outline of the figure hidden in the stone. But to harness the power of mistakes, you need a scientific attitude, curiosity instead of judgment. When you get something wrong, ask yourself, what exactly caused this error? By answering that question, you strengthen the very connection that was weak. This is step 5. Don't fear mistakes. Embrace them. They don't prove your inability. They prove you're pushing the boundaries of your understanding. And it's at those boundaries that genuine learning happens. 1330, 1445. The final ingredient. Intelligent hard work. You now know the complete formula. Simplify, teach, review, and refine play with creative repetition. Embrace mistakes. But there's one final ingredient that cannot be ignored. Hard work. Yes, there is a method. Yes, there is technique. But without real, sustained effort, nothing grows. The brain is like a muscle. It needs resistance to develop. There is no genius without discipline. What changes when you apply this formula is that your effort stops being wasted. You're no longer spending hours on meaningless highlighting or passive rereading. Every attempt to explain, every corrected mistake, every creative review builds a solid, measurable step forward. The truth is, every great mind worked harder than most people thought possible, but they worked intelligently. And that combination, method plus effort, is what transforms the impossible into the inevitable. Here's your challenge. Today, right now, choose one topic, any topic. Take a sheet of paper, simplify it, explain it out loud, review it, play with it. Embrace your mistakes and do it with discipline every single day. You'll discover in practice that there are no limits for someone who works hard with intelligence. Now, make a commitment. Go to the comments and type, "I choose to learn without limits." This isn't just a comment, it's a declaration to your own brain that you are ready to expand. If this video opened your mind, leave a like and subscribe for more lessons like this. And tell me, what's the first thing you're going to learn using this technique? I read every comment. Thank you for watching until the end. Stay well, and I'll see you in the next one.